Well, after a disastrous West Coast road trip that finished with an overtime loss to the last-place Anaheim Ducks, many in Leafs Nation are searching for answers and looking for change. Hey, everyone. Rob Wong, joined alongside by Postmedia national NHL columnist Michael Traikos. And, Michael, it is not a fun time to be a Leafs fan, a Leafs player, a Leafs coach right now with how things are going. 4 straight losses now. Just the poor play out west. I mean, it really stood out for a lot of people. It's always been a difficult challenge for the Maple Leafs when they go out there, but that was back when the Sharks were good, when the Kings were good, when some of these teams were at their peak. Now we're talking about some of these teams just at the bottom of the basement of the NHL. But what do you make of what's going on right now with the Toronto Maple Leafs?
Yeah, no one's safe, Rob? It's like we're 10 games in, and I'm even writing it. Let's fire Sheldon Keefe. Let's replace Kyle Dubas. And, it does seem a little bit more than just, knee-jerk reaction from fans who are just upset about, like you mentioned, just a disastrous road trip. And, you could flip it and say, last year the team was off to a 4-4-2 start, very similar numbers, and that was a team that finished with 115 points when all was said and done. This one feels different, and I don't know from your perspective how you're feeling it, but it doesn't feel like the Leafs have lost games where they deserve to win. Quite the contrary. You could say that last night they probably should have lost by a little bit more. Some of their wins, you could even argue, those were ones that maybe they should have lost. So I think there's just a really stinky feeling around this club, and it starts with the star players in my mind. Austin Matthews has been snake bitten, but you could say that his effort's been there. William Nylander has been really good so far. John Tavares is producing. The main culprit in my mind, and I hate to kind of dump on this guy more than fans are already dumping on him, but it's Mitch Marner. When you're getting paid close to $11 million and you've got an A on your jersey, you're expected not only to produce, but to be a leader out there. And I'm not seeing either one from Mitch Marner right now. And, Sheldon Keefe rightfully benched him for, 1 or 2 shifts last night. He could have gone a lot further. I think there was something like 8 or 9 minutes left in the game. And even TSN's panel was saying, why wasn't this guy just completely benched for the rest of the game? And I think that speaks to Sheldon Keefe and just the kind of this walking on eggshells kind of thing that he's kind of been going through. It feels like he's a coach who's really kind of looking over his shoulder right now and was kind of, needed to make a decision regarding Marner, but wasn't willing to go far enough where he was going to feel the heat from his players. And that's an uncomfortable spot for a head coach. I don't think that's a spot where you want to be in as a head coach. And I think something's going to give in the next couple of days here.
So you mentioned it. You've written about potential changes with the coach and GM, and many are wondering if that could be a move as early as maybe the end of the week. If things continue to go south here, they've got some tough opponents coming up in Boston and Carolina with a game against the Flyers as well that may turn the ship around on Wednesday. But let's say that Sheldon Keefe is the move and they make a change there. Who do you think are some of the candidates that might be able to step in and hopefully turn this thing around?
I think when people start talking about switching head coaches, the reason we're talking about it is because there's a guy in Barry Trotz is just waiting out there. And if Barry Trotz wasn't there, maybe we're not, calling for Sheldon Keefe to get fired right away. But let's face it, Barry Trotz came into Washington, very similar situation like Toronto, a team that was full of offensive talent, couldn't get over the hump in the playoffs, brought structure to that team, brought a level of respect amongst the coaching staff, and really turned Alex Ovechkin from a me-first player from the outside to a guy that was, a championship winner here and a guy that could lead a team to a cup. So, the fact that Barry Trotz is out there, it makes it so easy for the Leafs to say, okay, Sheldon, you know what, we tried, it didn't work, let's bring in a guy who's going to really come in and, demand a lot of respect amongst those players. So for me, that's an easy move to make. I don't think you're going to remove Kyle Dubas midseason. A lot of people are wondering, can Dubas, who already fired Mike Babcock, does he have another bullet in the chamber? Is he allowed to fire another coach? I say this is a team that has to win a championship this year. And if that means, switching gears and going from Keefe to Trotz, that's the move to make. So I think that's the easy fix right now. It doesn't fix all the problems, but I think it's enough where, this team can get righted right away.
Yeah, and I think part of the challenge is if you do make a move with Kyle Dubas, you're so early in the season that if you want to make some trades, is that, the next GM, the interim GM, going to be the one that you want moving forward as well to make some of those moves? So it is a difficult dance with regards to the front office and some of the changes there. Let's say there are no changes made and they continue to run with the group that they currently have. Michael, do they have what it takes to turn things around?
Well, you got to think, Rob, like in a week, Timothy Liljegren's probably coming back from injury. Jordy Ben's probably going to be available at that time. We'll have a clearer understanding of what Jake Muzzin, his future is. If he is going to be done for the season, that frees up a lot of cap space where Kyle Dubas can go out and make a trade. So there is an argument to be made for, just kind of letting the dust kind of settle for a bit, being a little bit more patient, see how this team responds when they're playing at home against Philadelphia and against Boston this week. We know this team is talented. We know that Austin Matthews is going to score a lot of goals and that Mitch Marner is going to start producing again. So maybe they can outscore their way out of some problems. Is it going to solve a lot of the problems where we're saying, is this team a Stanley Cup contender? Probably not. But, it's still early days. We're only 10 games in. But, just these early signs, it just leaves a real sour taste in, I think, a lot of people's mouths. So, I'm still of the belief that a change needs to come, but maybe there is an argument to be made to at least let it simmer for another week.
Yeah, and as you mentioned, the odds makers had this Maple Leafs team as one of the Cup favorites coming into the season, and that number has obviously changed quite a bit with their early season play, but still lots of times to get things going in the opposite direction. For all of Michael's NHL coverage, you can find his work at Postmedia, and you can get him on Twitter at Michael_Traikos.